Hello. In November of 2021, I released a video talking about 2042 and generally giving an opinion piece on it in the most objective form that I think that I could have come up with. Perhaps there was a little bit of bias since I'm already like a Battlefield player, but I think that I shared a lot of disdain and a little bit of disappointment that the rest of the players in the Battlefield, we'll call it a community, all shared, which was the fact that the game released in a state that was fucking abysmal. It's been 30 seconds, I can curse. And I truly do not know what to say beyond that point. However, my friends, I have now come to play the game again after quite some time. I've been playing for a few months now, and I have to say that it's in a better state. Is it Battlefield 4? No. It's definitely closer to Hardline than 4, but it's still, there is improvements, right? And that's what matters in the reality of the situation. The game was horrifyingly unfinished. It was awful regarding optimization, gameplay, things to do, like releasing a Battlefield game without any mode other than Conquest and whatever this, I don't know what Darkness Zone, what Hazard Zone, I don't know. I don't know what it is, some looter extraction mode. Anyways, it is so much better, and well, we're gonna talk about it, you know? What else am I gonna do? This is Battlefield 2042, 4 seasons later, even though the timeline on that is not necessarily correct, but you're gonna pretend that that makes sense in this video for the sake of because. With that out of the way, again, I'm going to follow the similar format that I used in the last video, which was like 3 years ago. And I'm going to talk about some of the positives, some of the negatives, and just a general overview of the situation. However, I think I'm going to start with the overview of the situation. Even though at the introduction of the video I kind of did cover this a little bit, I feel like there is a lot to be said. However, I'm going to try to not make a 3-year-long video. So we're going to start with making a not 3-year-long video and kind of giving you a brief if you were similar to me and kind of rage quit for the first 3 seasons of the game. I played a little bit of every season. However, Season 4, I have definitely played a lot more. We are currently in Season 4 as of this video. I'm recording this on May 16th at 1:43 a.m. because I have no life anyhow. So starting off with this, jumping into this overview of the game, state of the game. We are in Season 4. I don't like to think of these as seasons as in like summer, spring, autumn, winter. I rather look at this as content seasons, and typically that's a little bit more arbitrary and those lines are very blurred nowadays. Anyway, we're in Season 4. Season 4 is the one that I've played a lot of, and with every new season they've brought new maps, they've reworked old maps that were in the base game. Thank fucking God they did that, because those maps were abysmal and some of them are pretty good. So new maps, new vehicles, new characters, new portal weapons, there's a lot to be had there. One thing that they've been doing, or I don't know if they just did the first one, either way, is limited time modes, or you may have heard of these called as LTMs. The most recent one was the Leviathan event, which brought with it a game mode called Shutdown, which is, and I say this in the most serious way possible, probably one of the best modes that has ever been in a Battlefield game ever. The synopsis, whatever, was an 8 versus 8 game mode that had 3 objectives. So if you want to imagine like Obliteration from Battlefield 4, it was a little bit like that. However, you had 2 bombs, which were called Lances, and you had to plant them and detonate 3 different sites. However, this is a little bit where it differs from Obliteration. in the sense that it was stopwatch rule set. And what that means is it's more like Overwatch, if you've played Overwatch. I don't know how to explain this very clearly, like, just immediately. You would alternate attack and defense for one cycle, so like I would attack the first round, defend the second round. If my team detonated all 3 of the bombs within 2 minutes and 25 seconds, the enemy team then had 2 minutes and 25 seconds to either meet or beat our progress, which that sounds awfully innuendous, but hopefully I'm explaining that well enough. Again, this was an 8 versus 8 mode, and there was no vehicles. It was all infantry and all close, for the most part, all close quarters. This is very much what the game needed, in my opinion, and I really hope that we see a permanent return of this mode, or in some way to, like, make this mode popularly accessible. It almost felt like, at times, if you played late at night, or if you played in a full squad, it truly felt like a ranked mode. Now, I'm not, like, trying to get a ranked mode into 2042. That's not what I'm going for here. I'm simply saying you could tell that there were coordinated matches a lot of the times, and it was a lot of fun. It was very fast-paced, very back-and-forth matches, and it didn't feel like, you know, this helicopter rails your entire team from their spawn for the, you know, 45 minutes straight while you struggle to plant a bomb on the A bomb site. It was very engaging. The reason why I go on this tangent, and I'm not waffling here, is because it goes to show that the game isn't being ran by, you know, a quote-unquote skeleton crew. It feels like the game has not been given up on. It feels like it's starting to get to the point where, you know, a few years from now, people will look back at it and say, wow, that game was fucking horrible on release, but it kind of picked up in the middle of it, like, you know, a year or 2 later. And we're getting to the point where it seems like things are starting to get towards the paces, right? It's getting into the motions where things are enjoyable. It's no longer, wow, this battlefield's abysmal, or I've said that word too many times. This battlefield is fucking trash, as much as it is like, hey, it was a different battlefield, they tried something new, and some people liked it and some people hated it. I went on kinda on the stand on Twitter and got kinda mauled by, well, I mean Twitter, but for saying that what I meant to say is I feel like this could end up being one of the better battlefields, like one of the top 3 for me personally, but I think it could be one of the better battlefields at the end of the game, whenever that is. Who knows what, you know, DICE wants to do with this game, if they're gonna continually update it into Battlefield 6 or 19 or 75's release or whatever the hell they're gonna call it. And I got kind of mauled on Twitter for that, but also, like, who cares? The average person who posts on Twitter has the IQ of a dead skunk. Suffice to say, the game's headed in a good direction. With the new maps, the new modes, even if they're limited time. The Battle Pass is an extremely welcomed addition as well. We'll see how that goes when everyone doesn't get a free Battle Pass or the free Premium Pass in the next year. And the reworks of the maps are something that are very welcome. A lot of these maps were crap, they were very bad, and they're really good now. Another welcomed addition is the rotating game mode. So every week there's kind of rotating, so you'll see like All Out War or Conquest or something like that. There will be like the seasonal breakthrough, which it rotates through the maps of the season. Things like that. Rush of Ages, I think, is one that gets commonly played, where it's just Rush with the 2042 movement, so like you can attack sprint or traversal sprint, slide, faster jumping, stuff like that. But in, like, you know, 1942 and Battlefield 3 and Bad Company 2, and it's a lot of fun, but you're playing those era soldiers. And there's a lot of variety going into the game, whereas before it felt like you would, you know, be forced to play 128 player Conquest and get like 16 FPS. So either the game has gotten a little more optimized in that department, or my hardware has magically improved tenfold because I get like 180 FPS in the game. Alright, that's all cool and dandy, but let's not pretend that the game's perfect right now, because it most certainly is not perfect. So I don't tend to like to delve too heavily on the negatives, because a lot of the time they can be helped, but, you know, development stuff, whatever. I'm not gonna make excuses, but I think that most of the people watching this channel have some degree of rationality, because I tend to be a rational person at times. Not all the times, but definitely some of the time. And do that. and how YouTube works, you are probably a little bit similar to that. And if you're not, hey, welcome in. Remember to subscribe. Let's talk about performance. Performance can be good, and it's a lot better than what it used to be, but it definitely feels like there's a little bit of a wonky-tonky going on. That's probably my hardware. I'm on a 2070 and a 10700K. Don't mind me. What spews from the hardware, or not the hardware, the performance issues into, well, kind of, you know, getting really bad is the input. There was a couple fixes now, a handful actually, I think 3, perhaps, maybe 4, that targeted things like the mouse input. If you play on PC or use mouse and keyboard on whatever platform supports it, it definitely feels like at times I will have really good mouse input, and at times I will have very bad mouse input. Like playing yesterday, it felt so nice, and in playing today, it definitely felt like it was like a little sluggish. Now, whether or not this is going to be addressed again in the future is definitely open to interpretation, but it is absolutely worth you knowing. If there is one thing that makes something unplayable on PC, it is the fact when mouse and keyboard has an issue if you play mouse and keyboard, right? When you have a precision optical device with like very little assistance, right? There's, you know, things have to work. It can't just, oh, you know, it's a little sluggish, and you a couple, it's like, no, that can't be a thing. And that's something that needs to be addressed. Cool. I've said it for a long time now. If you play on controller, this has got to be one of the best games ever right now, man. Like, you look at, like, you know, Modern Warfare 2022, Warzone 2, you like look at a Destiny fucking 2 compared to this. Like, this is a gold mine of a game right now. Moving on to more relevant topics at hand. We've got a couple is that what they're called in this game? Operators, specialists, whatever they're called. Some of the balancing on them is a little wacky. Specifically, the one that comes to mind is Zane with the Airburst, the XM. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, XM satellite radio has made a return to Battlefield. You know that Airburst thing, when you'd be, you know, dying to a guy who's prone with a bipod LMG in Battlefield 4 on lockers, and you just get hit 3 times by a big exploding thing, and you're like, what the hell's an XM? Yeah, that's a thing in the game. It's on the character Zane, which a lot of people play just for the passive, but it's also like, why? I mean, if it's got a, you know, character ability, a character gadget, you might as well use it, right? You can't fault someone for that. Zane's passive ability, for context, is called Perseverance, and it starts health regen whenever you get a kill. Obviously, that's kind of insane, so a lot of people who prefer to play infantry are going to pick this character because, well, I mean, let's face it, health regen in Battlefield kind of comes at a price most of the time, whether that's stim shot or whatever you're playing. However, this isn't the problem. Again, the Airburst is the problem, and this is the active gadget or the active ability. Airburst is, well, it's a thermal thingy that you can focus it like a camera, and when you focus it, it focuses on objects. So like if I were to look at a crate and I press the button, it would focus it to that range. So let's say that that crate is 30 meters away. It would blow up at 30 meters. So you can use this to kind of hit over boxes and around cover. It's very spammable, and it has 5 in the magazine with a pretty moderate reload time. And, well, I mean, as you saw in the little mini-tage I had at the beginning, it's a little too good right now. How I would change it or make it more balanced or whatever, well, my first option is just don't put it in a game, right? That could have stayed in, like, Battlefield 4, and I don't think anyone would have missed it. But that's besides the point. Regarding other operator balances, like, nothing comes to mind, which is a good thing, right? I'm pretty openly against, like, hero shooters and, you know, gimmicky character abilities. I really hate that kind of stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. There's too much of it in modern FPS gaming, and it's pushed me very aggressively away from modern FPS gaming. So the fact that I'm saying, oh, Zane's the only one that I can really think of that's kind of busted, it's good. That's a good thing, I would suggest, even though we're speaking negatives. The one final thing I would suggest is the lack of close quarters and like infantry only modes. We're talking even in Portal. It's disheartening for someone like me who likes to play an FPS game, not God's playing ground too on, you know, Crazy Monkey Games. Like, I like to play and shoot at players with my guns, and I don't mind, you know, flying the jets or, you know, having fun in the tank once in a while. Right? Who doesn't? Because it's literally you're handed a temporary god mode, and, you know, it's a giant fuck you button that you get to smash over and over again. Kind of like a character ultimate ability, right? Anyways. The lack of close quarters or infantry only stuff, it's frustrating because a lot of these maps have big open plains that are just flat out dominated by tanks and, you know, choppers and the goddamn Condor. The fucking Condor, man! The Condor is very strong right now. It's very annoying to deal with. And to segue from this, the tools to destroy other vehicles, imagine like Liss's, you know, laser-guided rocket, they just don't deal a lot of damage. Anti-tank mines, as far as I know, don't even actually one-hit tanks, which is weird. And needing to take something like EMP grenades to even survive an encounter with a tank it's very unengaging, and I feel like it breaks the flow of gameplay if people on your team, like let's say your tanks, they're not actively engaging their tanks. And they're just like sitting in spawn, like, you know, tank sniping and farming KD ratio. It becomes a problem, and it's like obstructive gameplay. It's hard to play and hard to enjoy. But I think that it's again, this problem is less about the vehicles are too strong, because it's Battlefield. Vehicles are OP in every Battlefield game. They wouldn't be fun if they weren't OP. And it's more about there's no options for players to play the way they want to play, or there's very limited options. I don't want to say there's no. Or those options are very heavily limited to limited time modes, like Shutdown from Leviathan Rising. I also said that that was going to be the last point. There's one other point. Some of the weapon balance can be a little tricky-dicky. Now, I want to mention... Actually, I don't want to mention. I want to go out on a limb here. Let's break this down really simply. Right now, there's a weapon from the current Battle Pass. It is free. I think you get it from tier 50 or 25 or some number like that. It is called the RM68. It is an insane assault rifle. What I've been talking about on stream is the RM68, like, it's busted, but it's not busted for a reason that, like, it's pay to win or overpowered. It is how the guns in the game should work. It's like, for all intents and purposes, a laser beam with good range, good muzzle velocity, very little recoil, and, like, very, very fair bullet drop, right? The bullets drop, but not very far. Like, fast, whatever. And instead of saying, oh, this gun's overpowered, I kind of taken the stance of saying, why aren't the other guns like this? A lot of them are, and a lot of them have other trade-offs. Like, you'll see me in many of these clips using the AM40, which is kind of like, I compare the two weapons. The RM68 would be like the Ace-23, or the, what was this, Sturmgewehr or something, whatever that really strong automatic rifle in Battlefield 5 was, to the AEK from Battlefield 4, the, like, type, whatever, I don't remember what it's called. Again, that would be the RM68 is the Ace, and the Sturmgewehr, I think is what it was in Battlefield 5, and the AEK versus the type, whatever, medic gun, and the AM40. Again, fast fire rate, high recoil, fast hitter TTK versus, like, more stable, more range prone. Back to the initial point, sorry about that convoluted segue. I find myself questioning, why aren't more guns like this? Because you run into this thing where, at least for me, I feel like the hit detection is questionable at times. My aim's not as good as it used to be because I barely play FPS games now. Dude, I'm like actually washed up. I haven't been motivated for reasons that I've talked about, but this video is not about that. No one's gonna want to hear me bitch about FPS games all day. And I just find myself wishing, hey, why can't other rifles feel like this? Why can't, you know, other SMGs feel like this? And that's kind of where I draw the line at OP-ness. Wink, wink. All things considered, I've been sitting here in post for like an hour and a half just thinking about what I don't like about the game, and a lot of it just comes down to the few things that I talked about. Like I said, like, it works, you know, the game's playable, it's just, it kind of sucks if you prefer to play infantry a lot of the time. And I'm willing to throw a lot of the blame on burnout. I think that if you, like, have a job and you like your life and you have fun playing video games and if you have friends to play this game with, it's a lot of fun. All those things, I think you have a blast in this game. Hold for you know, some more enthusiasts or like higher end FPS players maybe get a little frustrated with your gun shooting marshmallows or something. But the fact that I'm struggling to find things to like, you know, snowball at, or spitball, I think is the expression. Like that's a good thing, you know? And I don't have anything else to say. I wanted to make this like an 8-minute video, but I hope you guys enjoyed. This is Battlefield 2042, 4 seasons later, in 2023. This is where I end the video. Hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.